All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next conversation. The elders admonished us to learn not to throw away the baby with the bathwater. The school feeding program of the federal government comes to mind as the calls to reduce the burden of care for school children on parents intensify. The House of Representatives has raised the hope of Nigerians. The lower legislative chamber has urged the federal government to revisit the school feeding program, suspended over some controversies. Adopting a motion on urgent call to revisit school feeding policy moved by the member representing Tani Federal Constituency of Kano State, Mukhtar Zakari. The House noted that the philosophy behind the National Homegrown School Feeding Program is to encourage enrollment into public primary schools, address childhood hunger, and improve ability of pupils to concentrate and learn. Following the adoption of the motion, the House mandated its committees on special duties and finance to invite the ministers of special duties and intergovernmental affairs, education, and finance to revisit the program and propose solution for its future success. Adeoye, let me start with you. Do you think we need to revisit this program? I mean, if you look back at the controversies this initiative generated.
Well, the government usually, does very good policies, very fantastic policies. The school feeding program, for me, I think is one of the best policies we've had. And we have seen practical examples, especially in Osun State. The first month that the policy was introduced, school enrollment grew by 28,000 pupils. So that was an indication that lack of access to food, is a basic incentive to children who really want to go to school, but they don't have access. They don't no access to food. It also shows that this has been proved scientifically. There is a link between the quality of food children eat and their IQ. Because the food you eat produces amino acids that enriches your brain. And that's how you find out that in most sub-Saharan African countries, poor countries, why their children cannot compete favorably, in terms of international relations on every aspect, is the fact that the quality of food our people take compared with what people take in Asia or Europe. There was an experiment conducted, I think late Professor Sophie Oluwole was also involved. They brought in African children all over the Asia and all that. They discovered that at the level of 5 years, the IQ of children all over the world is almost at the same level. But from the age of 5, the average African child suffers some kind of deficiency. Because from age 1 to 5, you are still retaining nourishment from breastfeeding. So we now find a situation where if children don't have access to food, the ability to develop the brain that God has given to them will be stunted. So there are so many reasons why I think that if we can provide feeding for our children, it's going to reduce the number of street beggars, that we find our children do. It's going to help the nation to discover hidden potentials in the younger ones. It's also going to help our educational system. So I think it's a very good policy. But now the implementation. It's one thing for you to have a policy designed to be, an element of political economic development, social service, or some people think it has to be driven by profit. So I think increasingly we are seeing a situation where the food, school feeding project, some people consider as a profit that, okay, contractors who are going to make money from the deal. How much can we make from the deal? The quality of food is not important to them. And then there's no assessment of the end product. What impact is it having on those children? So the problem of sustainability is there. And that's why I think if they really want to go back to it, I think it's a very fantastic program. But implementation, I don't see how we can implement giving food to children if local governments are not involved. If it's just a federal government policy. I don't see how you can do this without involvement of communities. Communities, they own these children. So you must involve them if they are to supply them food. If you involve women in the communities, it will even be cheaper. They can come there and help to produce the food because they know the food is going to their children. But we have a situation where this thing is given to political contractors. And at the end of the day, it does not serve its,
Its purpose.
its purpose. So I think it's a very good program, but in terms of content and implementation, I think there is a need for paradigm shift to be more community inclusive.
Adewale has raised two valid points: sustainability, implementation.
I'm not a fan of any program that makes money directly available. I've never been. It's not because they are not good. It is because of who we are in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we do not have a system that has sufficiently punished wrongdoing to be able to pass down this message adequately. The last government did a lot of things in terms of wanting to reach out directly to Nigerians. Cash transfer, money, whatever, market women, cash, so many that can put cash in people's hands. But here, on this program, we've raised several queries on these things. And those queries, they are still hanging. Till date, we have a minister who is on suspension.
What's the better?
You mentioned that name. Not.
That's a name.
You have a minister who is still on suspension over cash that should be given to people. In fact, sometimes even the money that you are going to use to make this cash available is more than the cash you are even making available to Nigerians when by the time civil servants add all of it. So you now begin to ask yourself the question. These tokens that we want to give to people, how many bus stops? Or to put it the way it should be put, how many checkpoints are we going to have before it gets to those who are going to be the beneficiaries? Because that's the big issue. You've budgeted, say, 1 billion for a particular state. Let it go to so number of schools. You've taken in caterers who are going to supply this food, so number of people. How much of that 1 billion for that time is going to get to those caterers? It's a big issue. You recollect that of recent, during the last Ramadan, a governor, specifically Kano, was very angry because he provided money for people to be fed. And the quality and quantity of food he saw when he visited, well, I mean, it's even those of us watching it on TV and seeing it, the photographs, I felt terrible. That's how do you serve this? And the governor is saying, I've put in about 6 billion naira into it. So this kind of programs are good. But for me, we need to scrap them completely. Because those who have mounted checkpoints, like they do on our roads, they are still waiting.
So if we scrap them...
Yes, if we scrap them, what we need to do, number one, we have workers, and we make them more buoyant, like the president is planning to do by putting more funds in. Number two, can we make food cheaper? Any way we can do it, whether it is by investing directly in agriculture through the real farmers, not portfolio farmers again, through the real farmers, and make food available directly to people so that when these things come cheap, parents will be able to feed their children better. It's because people are unable to feed children. That's why when there is an opportunity to say they have food somewhere to go to school, they quickly put in those children. By the time the food stops, they withdraw them. So can we look for a better way to to address this issue of food insecurity in Nigeria? Can we also go back and say, okay, this is free education. I enjoyed it. I don't know if you did. I went to school during the Bola Ige regime in Oyo State. Oh, you did not? Okay, I went to school during that period. I had free books. I had sitting. These days, if you want to get a good chair to sit on, you carry it from your home. I had all of those. So if we can have it, and then you are now saying, okay, anybody who wants to write, whether it is junior work, it is the senior one, we are paying. And people can easily give their children food to school. These things will be better because it's going directly to the beneficiaries and not to people who are going to. There is no way. You see, I've always said it. There was a day I left this set and people called me and well, my friends who were civil servants, they were saying, why will you go and say that thing? If we have civil servants, until when we have civil servants who are truthful to their calling, we can never have any successful program.
All right, Doctor, let me come back to Adeoye. Do you think we need to scrap this? Because I don't think the president is thinking about scrapping. I mean, what the president said before House of Reps decided to say we should revisit this program is that it will be for basic education in its entirety. But apart from this, other challenges are there. Insufficient classrooms and furniture to cope with increase in enrollment, heavy workload for teachers, and lack of effective monitoring and evaluation system. So if we need to revisit this program, what must change?
Well, I think if you look at the failure of this program, even which the government has admitted, the temptation is to just say, okay, let's scrap it. More so that there is no enough evidence to show that those who want to implement this program are coming out with a different methodology. So there is that temptation that, look, so I really agree with him. It's the same people, the same political structure. People. However, if we can redesign the program, for instance, when I was in secondary school, we used to have farms. And to a large extent, we provided our own lunch. There were secondary schools that were even, producing bread. So if at that time, students could have farms, and then we had community farms. I remember in those days, the community would bring the food together and cook. The women from each household. So I think we need to put indigenous content. You cannot have a program where the beneficiaries are not involved. You just, as a contract, just come and give it to the people. It's not going to work. So if there is local content, the communities themselves are the drivers, and there is inclusion of local communities, I think it will be a better program. But we should not have it as a permanent program. It should be an ad hoc project. I agree with what you have said. An agrarian policy that addresses the problem of food scarcity. I think that should be the long-term plan of the government.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on.